What's up guys, Phoenix here. This video is going to be another card review slash discussion type video, and this time I'm going to be talking about a new card coming out to us in Invasion Vengeance later on this year in the fall time frame. I believe the set drops sometime around late October, early November, if I remember correctly. But the card in question is an interesting new card. I'm very curious as to basically a lot of people's opinions on the card, whether or not they think it's okay for what it is, whether they think it's healthy, unhealthy, all that sort of nonsense. And I'm going to be making a few points as to why I think, it could be any of these things later in the video. But the card in question is a new trap card from Invasion Vengeance called Dimensional Boundary. And it is a normal trap card, and its effect reads, declare one monster card type, Ritual, Fusion, Synchro, Exceeds, or Pendulum. This turn, neither player can special summon monsters of the declared type. Also, negate the effects of face-up monsters on the field of the declared type while they are on the field. You can only activate one Dimensional Boundary per turn. Now, this is a very interesting card, and I think it's very interesting that Konami has chose to take this approach with a card like this. This card is essentially Vanity's Emptiness plus Skill Drain in one card, but it is not a floodgate. It is a card that is basically a hard, just one turn, you're not going to Dougie on me, you're not going to style on me this turn if you're playing any of these mechanics. But it's two floodgate effects built into one, but it only lasts for a turn, and it is very targeted. It's very targeted towards specific mechanics. I don't know if this is healthy for the game, per se. I don't know if it's even passable. I think it might be passable simply because it is targeted. It doesn't affect everything. But the issue I have with the card is the fact that it targets so many things, and one of the issues I have with it is the fact that there's just very, very, very clearly just a worse thing that could happen to you. Like, it's not like it evenly targets everything, because it targets Synchro, Exceeds, and Pendulum, which is all inherent summons, but then it also targets the Ritual and Fusion mechanics, which are strictly, harder for you to, deal with this card because of the fact that it's chainable to your cards, like Fusion cards and Ritual spells. So, that's, I see, as an inherent issue that I have with this card, straight up, is that it doesn't target all mechanics equally. If this card was going to be something that did that, then I could easily hold it a little bit higher in my mind, but it definitely just treats the Ritual and Fusion mechanics worse off than Synchro, Exceeds, and Pendulums. But basically because you just instantly lose one card by this card being chained to whatever Fusion spell or Ritual spell you were activating, and that's something that I don't necessarily like about the card, which is what makes me lean towards it being a bit unhealthy, because it's very sporadic in that some mechanics are just punished more by this card. Now, something that I do like about this card is that it, again, is not a floodgate. I don't want to make any gross generalized statements here, but in a vacuum, I would much rather deal with this card than have to out an Emptiness or a Skill Drain at any point in the game, because if my opponent has a board, flips Emptiness, I have to have the out or the game is over. If my opponent flips Skill Drain, has a board, even if they don't have a board, I need to have an out or the game is heavily skewed against me. The game is probably over for me. Especially if their deck was anything that could support maining Skill Drain or siding Skill Drain, things like that. But with this card, it's got that hard, it only lasts for the turn. So if you can survive a turn, which I don't know if that's going to be possible because of the fact that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a very fast and tempo-paced game at this current point, matches don't really last that long anymore, so I don't know if that's going to be, a relevant argument for this card. The issue really is that the fact that that it could very well end the game, but I don't think it just outright as hardly wins the game as like a floodgate does, and that's one of the things that I feel like is good about this card, and the fact that it's a kind of better card design, because they could have easily just made this card continuous, and it would have been fucking over. It would have been a Skill Drain targeted against certain things. So, I could be playing Pendulums, and you could be playing, fucking, Synchro Spam, or Necros, or, Shadals, and I could just flip this and say, yo, whatever you're doing, stop. But all my monsters still have effects, and I can still special summon all mine. That would have been terrible. That would have been incredibly one-sided. The card is still kind of one-sided, but it's definitely not without its flaws. The card definitely has flaws in the form of it has to be drawn before your opponent establishes a board. Now, it does operate as Skill Drain if your opponent has established a board with said monsters, but it's still going to be, significantly worse. You're not stopping them from summoning anything. You're not clearing a pathway. There's all these different things that that ultimately lead to this card being kind of bad to draw against established boards. But on the other side of that coin, you could then utilize your resource pool in a very suboptimal way, like throwing resources into cards just for the sake of getting rid of them, and then have this card set. And so you've broken a board, maybe not, the best way you could have possibly broken it, but you broke it the best way you could with the cards you had. Sure, you're like low on the resource pool, you may be behind in the game, but you drew this card. So you can activate it, and now your opponent basically is stunned for a turn, giving you another turn to correct yourself in the game state, or just outright win. Like, there's things like that I see for this card, making it both good and bad to draw against established boards. So there is that, because decks are definitely becoming, better at putting out unbreakable boards, but then again, decks are also becoming better at dealing with unbreakable boards. Cards, in general, are becoming better at dealing with unbreakable and or established boards. So there is that, but ultimately, my entire opinion on this card, it's going both ways at this point. I'm really curious as to whether or not this card is going to see play when we get it, because the OCG's had it for a while, and it's seen some sparing play. I haven't seen it see too much play in the OCG, which is very strange for a card like this, that is very much versatile because it targets mechanics. Like, at the end of the day, almost every deck plays some form of a Seize monster or Pendulum monster, except for in the TCG, where we have things like Monarchs and Cosmos that are very, very effective at utilizing their main deck as a resource. So there is that. That's also just a point against this card, is the fact that by the time this card comes out, if we still have Cosmos and Monarchs hanging around, this card is effectively dead against those cards. So, I don't know. Like I said, I'm curious about what you guys' opinion are of this card. I'm curious about gathering as many opinions on this card as possible. But, so, basically, if you have one, leave it in the comments down below. But other than that, as always, guys, thanks for watching. That's going to be it for this video. Like, comment, subscribe to all the nonsense you usually do. Links are in the description of my Facebook and Twitch links and all that sort of nonsense. Check out the links if you want to mess around with them. If you want to go and do things with them, that's up to you. That's what they're there for. They're there for you to use. It's a resource. Resources are good, I hear. But other than that, if you like my content, definitely give it a share if you think there's somebody else that likes it as well. I'm trying to grow the channel as quickly as possible and trying to reach as many people as possible. And I hopefully can start reaching a higher number of people in the near future. Fingers crossed. But anyway, that's it for this video. Again, let me know what you guys think about this card in the comments down below. And as always, guys, take care.